Welcome to Bill and Tony's Excellent Adventure in Music. Here are your hosts, Bill Fraser and Tony Sartu.
Welcome to Bill and Tony's Excellent Adventure in Music. I'm Bill,
And I'm Tony.
and we're going to explore our love for music by sharing some facts and our thoughts on some of the best albums of all time.
Now, the show was on hiatus for 2024. So before we dive back into our regular album shows, we're going to do a quick recap of the concerts that we saw in 2024.
I am so excited to talk about that, and I think we're even going to throw in some album highlights just as a little bonus.
Yeah. So before we get started there, we mentioned we were on hiatus in 2024. The reason, folks, that we had to take the year off was Bill got himself another master's degree, and he just got notification that he has graduated. So congratulations, Bill.
Thank you very much. I am very happy to say I am a second time master's degree recipient,
Mhm.
which I never thought I'd say. Um,
So
and
for those of you don't remember, Bill and I, we went to high school together, and we've always been very competitive, and we both got
no,
our masters from Stevens Institute of Technology back in the early 2000s, and Bill, in his never-ending quest to one up me, had to go get himself another master's.
I did, I mean, we both went to Rutgers, both went to Stevens, I just,
What can I say? But so in the meantime, while you were doing all that studying, I was watching a lot of movies. I have now seen 59 movies that were released in 2024.
yeah. I did not keep up with you on the movies. I kept listening to albums. I kept listening to
Going to
audiobooks because
concerts.
going to concerts, that's, I picked my content where I could do it. The movie time was hard for me. So
Yeah. All right, so let's get back into it. So let's talk about the concerts that we saw last year. You saw more. I think I saw maybe 12 to 14. How many did you see?
24. So
Well, I mean, that's makes up for the movie gap, right?
exactly. It was, again, going out and doing things. I learned from you to say yes to things. So
Yes. So speaking of saying yes, in January, I said yes to going to see my third U2 show at the Sphere. I saw two shows back in December of 23, and I saw one in January. The reason for the one in January was I got to take Colleen and our dear friend Jennifer. Jennifer is the gal who set us up on our blind date 23, 22 years ago. So, Colleen and Jen grew up as, high school girls, big fans of U2. So I thought it was a great opportunity to, get us all three of us together, spend some time seeing U2, and what a thrill to see them in the Sphere, which everyone has heard about it. It's everything that it's cracked up to be. It's an incredible audio visual show. The sound is amazing. It never sounds super loud. It always sounds perfect no matter where you are. The visuals are incredible, and for two of the three shows, I got to be right on the rail, which was just an absolute, like, I never would have thought that I'd have a chance to see U2, right front row, and I did twice, and it was amazing.
and Tone, you saw right up front, but you also sat in the back. What was the difference in the perspective? Like, I think
Thanks.
that's worth mentioning.
Yeah, thanks for asking. So I didn't sit in the back. I was in the back of the pit. So it was still the floor. And really the pit was probably about 100 yards, if that, maybe even less, maybe 50 yards. So being in the back of the pit was still, I mean, the equivalent of being at a small venue general admission show. But nevertheless, definitely could see the visuals much better than right up front.
And
And it was also a great experience.
yeah, well, that's awesome.
All right, so that brings us to February, and I think we both only saw one show. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm cutting you off on January.
Well, I would just mention that I saw the Black Pumas and Diggable Planets at the Fillmore in January. It was a great show. It was fun.
Okay, so now we're in February and we're still staying in Philadelphia, which has kind of become our go-to spot for concerts, wouldn't you say?
Philly is a very accessible location for concerts. Got a lot of fun small venues. easy to drive in. Parking is usually pretty good, easy out. Yeah, I agree.
And we went to see Mitski at the Metropolitan Theater, and this was a fun show because we both took two of our daughters, or my one daughter, and you took one of yours. So we I had seen Mitski before with Ellie, so this was my second time. Oh, and I think did I
You
take
actually went with
Lexi?
you went with Lexi and
Yeah.
Ellie. So
Yeah.
you,
So
Lexi, and Ellie had seen Mitski before.
so
I was the newbie. I mean, I'd listened to Mitski's albums, but I'd never seen her in concert. Yeah.
Yeah, so me and Lexi and Ellie have went to our second Mitski show together, and this one wasn't as much fun as the first one, but it was still a great night to be
Yeah,
with
more
all of you.
country, but I still really enjoyed it. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, so now we're in March, and March was one of, I think, probably one of the best times I had doing any single thing at all in the whole year was the Beaches show that we saw at the Williamsburg Music Hall um, with
On that
our buddies.
monsoon of a midweek trek into Brooklyn.
A Tuesday night into Brooklyn, three trains, monsoon, me, you, and our buddies Tom and Will, and what a blast this
It
was.
was so much fun. And Tone, I don't know who found this spot on the left side of the stage, but whichever one of it wasn't me. I just followed. Whoever found that spot, it was brilliant. We were right up near the stage. We had a great view. It was amazing. We were like so immersed in the action. It was just an awesome venue and a great location to watch from.
I'll take credit. I found the spot. You guys were finding beers, which is equally important, but I found that spot. I just had this radar for where to find the open space, and it was just so strange because we were literally 10, 15 feet from the stage, but because it was off to the side and all the young ones wanted to be, right in front of the stage, and hey, great for them, great for us.
Yeah.
Couldn't it made the night perfect because we
Uh,
actually had space to breathe,
It
easy
was
access to the bar.
easy access to the bar. We were right, perfect view,
Yeah.
amazing energy in the place too. The place was electric.
And this seeing them headline that small place, they did 16 songs. They did a full-on show. And it's amazing when a new band, or I mean, they're not new, but not a huge catalog. They did 16 songs, and their big viral hit that put them on the map was like my 14th favorite song that they did.
And I think honestly, I mean, the crowd was into it when they sang it, but I think a lot of the other songs got more energy from the
I,
crowd.
I think 100%. I think that crowd was all fans. They were like us. Whatever. We don't care about this song.
Yeah, it was a phenomenal night.
Yeah.
And I think the thing that I take away from that night, and it just reinforced, don't ever use the coat check at a concert venue.
Code check, ridiculous. So really one of my, small handful of best nights of the year. That was so much fun.
Yeah. So
Okay,
the
so
only
and
other thing for me in March was I saw Juanes at the Fillmore. Amazing artist. I went with Livy, my oldest daughter, and the whole concert was in Spanish. He spoke Spanish the whole time. Livy is fluent, so she was kind of my translator for the night. It was awesome. So
all right, so now we're in April, and April was one of the best concert experiences I had for the year. And it was the Maggie Rogers pop-up show, and it was at the Theater of Living Arts in Philadelphia. And this venue only is a capacity of 800 people. And, Maggie later on that year sold out the Garden 2 nights. So to see an artist who could sell out the Garden 2 nights in an 800 person GA event was so awesome. And the way we were able to get that is our buddy Will and I went down and bought tickets directly from Maggie at a fan event. Now she didn't actually sell us the tickets, but we had an encounter with her. We're standing in line. We got there at 5 in the morning. There's 1,000 people in line, and Maggie's walking by greeting, just waving to the fans. And Will had bought a 6-pack naturally. So we're drinking in the line, and he goes, "Hey, Maggie." you want a beer? She turned around, walked back, and said, yeah, sure. And she grabbed one, and Will and her toasted while I took some video. And it was a pretty cool celebrity encounter, I guess, with an artist that we love.
Yeah, and you guys get a big thank you from me for actually being down there and getting tickets so that we could go to that pop-up show. I couldn't be down there with you guys because I actually had plans with another of our friends, Jim Zafian. We drove down to Baltimore to see a baseball game, and Jim was cool enough to drop me on the way back so that I could meet up with you guys and go to that show. So
That's pretty hardcore too. So
yeah,
kudos all around. All right, so now we're in May, and one show that I wanted to shout out was friend of the pod, a former guest of the show, and an artist that we're big fans of, Laura Cantrell, did a show in Metuchen in just a little old schoolhouse, and you and I and our buddy Will, we and Brian see her do her States of Country show in New York when she's doing that series. But this was a show where she was actually performing as the artist instead of doing the States of Country. And it was just a lot of fun to see an old friend. And, we didn't get a chance to talk about her before Bob Dylan, but I don't know if you know this. She was just this past weekend at the Bob Dylan Museum in Tulsa. Well, actually, the Bob Dylan Museum in Tulsa sponsored a concert, and artists like Lucinda Williams and others came out and celebrated the 50th anniversary of Blood on the Tracks. And pretty cool that Laura was able to be there.
that's awesome. I know he loves one of her songs and spoke very highly of it. So yeah.
Yeah. So what else did you see in May?
Um, you and I went to see the Black Crows at the Met in Philly, and I think I would mention that for two reasons. One, the brothers came back together, and we've got two other brothers coming back together in 2025. That's going to be interesting. And two, because they released a new album, and we're going to actually revisit their catalog and talk about Shake Your Moneymaker this year on one of our episodes. So their album Happiness Bastards in 2024 was a great album, very very much in their wheelhouse. It was fits really nicely as far as like their catalog, and I think if you enjoy the Black Crows, you'll love that album. I loved it.
Oh,
So.
well, all right. Good to know. I'll check it out. Anything else in May?
I also saw Krungbin, and they released a new album in 2024, A La Sala. Krungbin, amazing instrumental trio from Texas, phenomenal. Lexi turned me on to them. I'm a huge Krungbin fan. I'm very much into the guitar instrumental, and that'll be a theme as we talk about the concerts this year. And they were great, and went with Lexi to see them.
Well, and we took June off
We took
after,
June off.
yeah. We had a
So,
nice start to the year, but it gets cooking as we get
oh
into July.
yeah, let me take over for the back half. It's a
Yeah.
house of fire in the back half of the year. So July, I'll just mention that I went to Citi Field with Chris to see the Foo Fighters, Pretenders, and Mammoth WVH. Show got rain in the middle. Concert got cut short. It was a great show, but it's kind of a bummer when you get rain and thunderstorms on summer concerts outdoors. And that was a lot of that in 2024. So a lot of the concerts got interrupted with summer thunderstorms in 2024. I also saw at Wells Fargo in Philly, Blink 182 and Pierce the Veil. So I got the tickets to see Blink 182. Lexi came with me. And when she found out Pierce the Veil was the opener, she went crazy. She's like, oh, I love Pierce the Veil. I had really never listened to them, Tone. They were great. They, in my opinion, they outplayed Blink 182. And not that Blink 182 is bad, but um,
Wait. They outplayed the best rock and roll band
well,
in the
well,
world.
you're stealing my thunder. But Blink 182 made a huge point of saying, "You're so lucky to be able to see the best rock and roll band in the world." And I'm like, "Yeah, maybe I did. It was Pierce the Veil."
And who are the old guys following them up, right?
Yeah, exactly. And then the last show I saw in July is another hat tip to a pod we're going to do this season. I went to see Sammy Hagar at PNC, and he played most of the 5150 album. We're going to visit that album this year, which I'm super excited about. The opening act was Loverboy. They sounded okay. They looked really old.
Yes.
And Sammy, here's what I'll say: Satriani did such an amazing job doing the Eddie, guitar style.
Hmm.
It was a virtuoso class, and it was just amazing to be able. I've seen Eddie live multiple times. He's phenomenal. He's one of my faves. Satriani is a virtuoso. It was absolutely amazing, and the concert was a lot of fun. We had a blast.
And Satriani is very generous because he is a virtuoso, but he's so generous talking about, playing Eddie and saying how, he can't believe how easy Eddie made it look because what he has to do every night playing Eddie's uh, guitar solos is impossible.
Yeah, no, agreed. So that takes us to August, Tone, and you and I went with some friends to Music Fest to see Greta Van Fleet in the Beaches. I would 100% go to Music Fest again. I thought that was great.
Absolutely. Out in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania at what do they call it? The steel mill or the
Yep,
steel cage or whatever.
whatever.
Um,
Steel Cage, love that. If it's not called that, it should be.
but it was a great time, and it was a hot day. And pro tip, get the Yingling flight deck. It's like an extra $20 buy up, but it makes an enormous difference in your experience. So if you go out to the Music Fest in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, Yingling flight deck.
And my pro tip is always have Tony be the concierge because he finds these pro tips. Um, so then we went together to see Green Day, the Smashing Pumpkins, and Rancid at in Philly at Lincoln
Uh,
Financial. Right? Was it
Citizens
Lincoln?
Bank.
No, Citizens. I'm
Citizens
sorry. It was the
Bank.
baseball. It was the baseball field,
Yeah.
Citizens Bank. And another rainy day. Like there was a threat that concert was going to be canceled. And he had um, Billy Joe and whatnot, like let it rip that night. I mean, to the point where I think we were all blown away, like what he gave at that
From a
show.
vocal perspective, yeah.
Yeah, and he actually did give it all because the next night when he was supposed to be playing at the
Hershey.
Hershey Park Theater, they had to cancel that show because he blew his voice out at our show. And all week it looked like they were going to do the Hershey show and they weren't going to do the Philly show, but it flip flopped. So we had a rainy day, but we got a great show with Green Day, and their album Saviors that they released in 2024 was excellent as well. And Tone, what are we doing in 2025 as far as a pod for Green Day?
We're gonna do Dookie.
So we're digging into the 90s with some very fun stuff in this season. So
And
and
I'll
then
just add before we move on is like going back to what you were saying about Billy Joe and that vocal. I distinctly remember this wasn't after the fact when we found out it got canceled, the Hershey show got canceled. We're really thinking how he can't possibly do this every night,
no,
and he just couldn't. It was
yeah, no, it was
amazing.
it was amazing,
Yeah,
and like I think you turned to me. I'm like, how does this guy do this every night? Like,
yeah.
and the answer is he doesn't.
He doesn't. Yeah. So we're lucky.
Yeah, we got to see an amazing show.
Mhm.
And then the other concert I would mention is I saw Pink and Sheryl Crow. Sheryl Crow I had never seen before. Pink, you and I had seen the year prior with Brandy Carlisle. Um, Pink puts on an amazing show, so that was a fun show. That takes us into September, and I will say I started off September with a bang with an artist that I was dying to see live, that I've been a huge fan of for a long time, and her album that she released in 2025, Tiger's Blood, by Waxahachie, Katie Crutchfield, who goes by the band name Waxahachie, which is a town where she,
Mississippi or something like
yeah,
that.
where she grew up. Um, she's absolutely phenomenal. I would highly recommend. She's touring. She's going to open for Lord Huron at MSG coming up. If you can get tickets, go see her. She's amazing. That album, Tiger's Blood, one of my top albums for 2024. She leveled up with that album, Tone. It was absolutely phenomenal, and she was amazing live.
I'm not familiar with her catalog and hadn't listened to any of her music before. This year, I listened to Tiger's Blood probably at your behest, and two songs on that album are two of my favorite songs that I heard this year, Seven Sisters and Right Back to It. I mean, start there, play the whole album, but if you got to start somewhere, start with those two. Those are absolute bangers.
Yeah, no, she is someone I recommend like without even thinking about it. She's just a lot of fun to listen to. So then maybe I'll turn it over to you to talk about Casey.
Sure. Well, and kind of in the same, lane as Waxahachie, got to see Casey Musgraves, who's one of my girls. I think I've got her poster here right over my shoulder. Um, and this was great. Got to be, got free pit tickets. So got to take our buddy Brian, and we were right on the rail again. And um, Casey, I've seen her 8 times now, so she's,
Wow.
clearly one of my favorites. But what's awesome, and I know you say this all the time too, is when you go to see a headliner and the opening acts who you don't know going in are just great and you
Yep.
love them.
Yep.
So we had Nickel Creek and Father John Misty. Hadn't heard of either of them, and both were great, but Father John Misty, the music was great, but his stage presence was amazing too. So he's coming back to Philly this in February, so in a couple of weeks. Everyone's onto it because the tickets are super expensive.
Yeah. His album, Maha Shamashanana, was one of my highlight albums for the year. Absolutely phenomenal. You get a 70s cool rock vibe. I think you said it to me, and I believe he's probably the coolest guy you saw all year, right?
He
So
was, I mean, he just exuded cool. One quick story with the Casey's show, and that was at the Prudential Center in Newark. Um, at the show, we were right by Casey comes out off the main stage and to the B stage, which is in the center of the floor area to do a intimate, acoustic set. And we were right there, right by where she walks out, and our buddy Brian held out his hand trying to high five her. She didn't high five him back. A week later in Florida, there was a huge brouhaha, which I'm sure you saw, and a lot of people probably heard about, where a fan was grabbing at her and touching her, and she kind of freaked out on her. So that could have been Brian.
I'm glad it wasn't. So that same night, we were originally going to go to Philly together with you and Rick and me and my brother-in-law to see Pearl Jam. And me and my brother-in-law John went to go see Pearl Jam, and Glenn Hansard opened. And Glenn Hansard was awesome. Pearl Jam was great. They're always great. I was excited to see them specifically because Dark Matter had come out in 2024. Loved the album. And they always change up their sets, and it was great. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah,
Uh,
my buddy Nick in town has a favorite song, and now I'm blanking out on what that song is, but he's now trying to get me to do a 1 day trip to Pittsburgh because he's on a quest to see them perform his favorite Pearl Jam song, and he hasn't seen it yet.
there you go. So then I'll mention a couple of other things in the month. I saw one of my absolute favorite shows of the year, one of my favorite artists that I listen to at all, St. Vincent at the Met in Philly. Her album All Born Screaming came out in 2024. Phenomenal album. She's a virtuoso guitarist, but even more so, she's a brilliant music creator. She was phenomenal. The way she structured her concert, how dynamic she was on stage. She was so engaged with the audience. It was just a phenomenal concert from start to finish. She went out and she stage dove out into the pit. She climbed up into the balcony area. Like, she was all over the place, Tony. It was one of the most dynamic performances I saw from any artist in 2024. She was
When you
phenomenal.
say she climbed up, do you mean like she scaled the
She
wall
she
Spidey
scaled
style?
the wall and climbed up. She got a leg, like she grabbed it, and the one of the security guards gave her a little bit of a push, but she climbed up.
That's nuts. And I mean, she's not 22 either.
Now,
I think she's in her late 30s maybe.
I,
So
I think she's 30s, and
yeah,
she was as dynamic a performer as I saw all year. And Eve Toomer
awesome.
was the opener, and Eve Toomer was very fun to see. I also saw PJ Harvey at the Met in Philly. PJ Harvey started exactly at 8, no opener, good show. We saw the Beaches again, third time for the year. We went to Asbury Lanes. We saw the Beaches, and that kind of rounds out the month. That takes us to October, where we saw Maggie Rogers again. Those were the tickets that you and Will got, where we went to Wells Fargo, saw Maggie Rogers and Ryan Beatty. And I will hand it over to you to mention a cool opportunistic show you got to go see.
Yeah, this was cool because I had did not have ELO, Electric Light Orchestra, on my radar to go see, but I was out in California with buddies to go see the Rutgers USC football game, and I had a midnight flight, so I had time to kill. Turns out that the Forum is literally 2 miles from LAX. So I just went to the Forum, picked up a last minute ticket, and got to see ELO. Killed time before my flight, still managed to get to the airport with plenty of time to spare. And this was ELO's farewell tour. It was actually supposed to be their last performance in the US ever. It ended up they had to do another one to make up for a illness in Phoenix, but still one of the last shows ever of a legendary band. So it was cool, and everyone, it was all expert music. Jeff Lynne, knows everybody in the business, so he just assembled a band of all great musicians, and it was a fun night.
Did they do Mr. Blue Sky?
They ended with Mr. Blue Sky.
Awesome. Awesome. All right, so that takes us to November, and I'll mention one of my favorite acts that I was so excited about to go see in November. I got tickets to go see Hermanos Gutierrez. They were the opener for Leon Bridges. Leon Bridges was great, but Hermanos Gutierrez is who I went to see. So Georgia and I went to see them, and they did not disappoint. Their album Sonido Cosmicos that released in 2024 was phenomenal. Their Latin guitar rock, brothers brilliance, I can listen to over and over. They were my second on my Apple replay for the year, behind Sonny Rollins. So listen to a lot of jazz when I'm doing schoolwork. So.
Well, it's interesting because one of the podcasters I listened to, he was talking about his Spotify Unwrapped, and number one was Hermanos Gutierrez for him because that's his nighttime music. That's what he goes to bed to, and he just runs it all night.
It is great music to kind of wind
Like
down to, and
ambient.
just it's wonderful, and they're so brilliant. So,
All right, what else you got?
I don't have anything else in November. You wanted to mention a
Oh,
concert
yeah.
that you went to go see in November.
Yeah, so me and Will and my old college roommate Sean and our wives went to go see Stargazer Lily. Now, Stargazer Lily is super important to some of us from they were around the early 90s into the 2000s, and we used to that they were a local Philly band, really popular in Philly. We used to, see them all the time, and in fact, they played a house party at me and Colleen's house in Red Bank once, and then they broke up, and they've gotten back together, and it was just such a joy to see them do new music, but then of course all the old music that we really loved. So um, I'm just going to stand on the stump, ask you guys check out Stargazer Lily, great pop rock, and I guarantee you'll like it.
Awesome. All right, so that takes us to December, the last month of the year, and I went out with a bang in December.
Whew.
So I saw a bunch of shows in December. So Will convinced me to go to see Ghostface Killer, Raekwon, and the Jizza at Terminal 5. I was traveling back, still went. Had been away for a little bit, went to the show that night, and it was amazing. Nas showed up. It was so cool to get to see three members of the original Wu-Tang together doing some of their own stuff, some of the Wu-Tang stuff, honoring hip hop and rap, having Nas come out. And the thing that I would say that stayed with me the most is the different levels in Terminal 5. When you were on level 2, it's like you're getting chest compressions, the bass in your chest, specifically with their speaker setup and how what they were playing. Like, I've never felt anything like it in my life. Like, I felt like I could feel it in the center of my chest, and it was amazing. So they sounded great, and it was a crowd that was appropriately aged for the Wu-Tang. So Will and I felt like right in right in our sweet spot. It was great. Um, so then
You didn't have
then I
any coat check problems there.
no coat check problems there. So then a couple of shows at one of my favorite venues that I'll give a plug to, Underground Arts in Philly. Check it out. It's a phenomenal venue. It's a small venue. It's GA venue. Layout's great. I saw La Lome, Los Angeles, and they dropped their debut album, the Los Angeles League of Musicians in 2024. Latin, Cumbrian guitar rock, surf rock. Tone, they blew me away. It was one of the most dynamic bands I've seen. They were phenomenal. They captivated me. I went by myself. It was the first concert I ever went to by myself. Again, I take you as inspiration. I had never done it before. You're like, hey, if you want to go, just go. And I did it. And it was amazing. I'm glad I did. I had a blast. So thank you for kind of encouraging me to do that.
Awesome.
And then I went again to Underground Arts with Lexi and her boyfriend Tyler and Livy and her boyfriend Max, and we saw a three headlining act of The Thing, who opened for the Beaches the first time I saw them, and that's why I wanted to see them again. Friend and Waxjaw. Friend and Waxjaw are two local punk Philly bands, and they were like, they got a big drawing. And it was a lot of fun. So we had a blast. It was mosh pit. Lexi caught a boxing glove from Waxjaw. The lead singer signed it for her. It was a lot of fun. We had a blast. And then I think you had a show you wanted to mention in December.
The last one to close out my year was the 10th annual Allied Coalition Talent Show. This was my fourth year going, courtesy my brother Dave. We got to double date, me and Dave and Steph and Colleen. And it's Jack Antonoff and his sister host this talent show where they bring out a bunch of their friends in the industry to, perform. And this year, Antonoff is, the leader of the Beaches, but we also got to see Sabrina Carpenter, Rachel Zegler, Remy Wolf, and Trey Anastasio. And it was pretty cool because Sabrina Carpenter, I had never listened to her. Put on her album after, it's actually pretty good, so she's pretty good, but also she was kind of a big deal this year.
Oh,
So it
she
was
was a
kind
very
of
big deal,
neat.
and I like
Yeah,
that
so
album a lot, actually. Yeah.
yeah, I was surprised that was better than I don't know what I was expecting, but whatever it was better than that. And it was great to get to see her perform. Um, Rachel Zegler was cool because she's on Broadway and she actually went straight from, closing curtain, got in a car, drove down to NYU and just hopped on stage and did a couple of songs too. So that was pretty neat.
Very cool.
All right, so I guess that was it for our year in concerts. Are there any other albums of note that you want to mention?
Yeah, just a few. So I would highlight a couple of albums that I would encourage people to check out if you're looking for something new to listen to. So there's an album by Cindy Lee called Diamond Jubilee. Lo-fi, very cool. You get a Beach Boys, Righteous Brothers type feel. It universally got rave reviews from critics in 2024. That's why I checked it out. It's worth the hype. Check it out. There's a new band who debut album, Been Stellar, Scream from New York, New York. A lot of Strokes and U2 vibes from them. Really great, like promising stuff, worth checking out. Fontaines DC, if you like them, you'll love Romance. If you don't like them, you're missing them. They're great. The Marias, Submarine, a lot of great beats, a lot of cool rock. They're phenomenal. Check it out. And then three last quick hits. Wonder Horse, my album of the year, Midas by Wonder Horse. I just saw them at Underground Arts. They blew me away. They blew me away with that album. My album of the year for 2024 is Midas by Wonder Horse. Check it out. They're bringing rock back. These guys are phenomenal. Two other quick ones. Illuminati Hotties, great name for a band. And the album Power, phenomenal. They give me a Beaches vibe, so check them out. Check them out. They're great. And then if you like Latin music, Peso Pluma, Mexican artist, absolutely phenomenal. You get a lot of mariachi, a lot of classical Mexican. You get some rap, you get some hip hop. He's phenomenal. The album Exodo, highly, highly recommend it.
And I guess I should mention, because we talked about them because we saw their shows, but didn't mention their albums. Maggie Rogers came out with a new album, which I happen to love. It was one of my favorites of the year. Don't Forget Me. Check that one out. And the Beaches, their album, I think might be a 2023
It
release,
was. Yep.
but
Blame Brett. Yep.
Blame My Ex was, or Blame Brett was
Blame My Ex was the album.
2020
Yeah, I'm sorry.
was 2024 for me. So definitely check that one out as well.
Yeah, agreed.
All right, so in the show notes for this pod, we're going to include links to the set list for most of the shows that we saw. Some of them aren't available, but if you want to see the songs that we saw, check out the show notes for those set lists.
All right, and we'd love to hear from you. So you can reach us via email at bill@bntexcellent or tony@bntexcellent. You could reach us on social media, on Instagram at Bill and Tony Pod, Twitter, Bill and Tony Pod, and on Facebook at BNT Excellent. And we're going to try to homogenize that to Bill and Tony Pod. We're not there yet. So that's our adventure for this week. And
Yeah,
we're coming back for this season. So
absolutely. We're back ready to go. Thanks everyone for listening.
we'll see you next time.